Hello, grade 12 students. In this video, we're going to talk about the hypothalamo pituitary axis and the ovarian secretions. This is chapter 15, document 3. Hypothalamo pituitary axis. First of all, what is the hypothalamus? Hypothalamus is situated at the base of the brain and above the pituitary gland. The hypothalamus includes neurons that secretes hormones. The most important one is the gonadotropin releasing hormone, GnRH. Gonadotropin releasing hormone. This hormone will travel toward the pituitary gland through the blood. So hypothalamus is situated at the base of the brain, just above the pituitary gland. It includes neurons that secretes hormones. One of the most important is the gonadotropin releasing hormone, GnRH. This hormone will move toward the pituitary gland through the stream. What is the pituitary gland? Pituitary gland is a small gland. It's connected to the hypothalamus through the hypophyseal vascular duct. The pituitary gland is composed of two different parts. It's composed of the posterior pituitary gland, which is called the post-hypophysis, and the anterior pituitary gland. So pituitary gland is composed of two parts, the anterior pituitary gland and the posterior pituitary gland. Okay, so this is the figure showing the different glands. Here is the anterior pituitary gland. Here we have the hypothalamus. Okay, the part of the hypothalamus. Okay, here we have the anterior pituitary and the posterior pituitary gland. The anterior pituitary gland secretes the gonadotropin stimulating hormones like number 1, the FSH, the follicular stimulating hormone, and the second hormone is called LH, it's the luteinizing hormone. So anterior pituitary gland secretes two hormones. The first hormone is the FSH and the LH. Both of them, they are called the gonadotropin stimulating hormone. FSH, follicular stimulating hormone, and LH, luteinizing hormone. In this slide, we will talk about the pituitary control of the ovarian secretions. Experiments that are performed on animals allowed us to verify that the hormonal activity is not autonomous, doesn't occur without any interference of other parts. So let's see here. We have 3 experiments. We have the experimental conditions and the results obtained. First, we have the adult control animal and the normal. This is the control, which is used to compare and explain the different experimental results. So we have cyclic activity of the genital system, the ovaries, the uterus, and the vagina. Then the second experiment, what did we do? We removed the anterior pituitary gland. So removal of the anterior pituitary gland. This leads to the atrophy of the ovaries and inhibition of the cyclic activity. Okay, so here, important for the anterior pituitary is important for the development of the ovaries and to the cyclic activity. Whereas, third experiment, the removal of the anterior pituitary, then grafting it in the pituitary area, leads to the restoration of the ovarian cyclic activity. So here we can deduce that the anterior pituitary gland can control the development of the cyclic activity of the ovaries. The control is ensured by blood, through the release of hormones. Okay? So the anterior pituitary hormones LH and FSH, they stimulate the growth and the maturation of the cavitary follicle. And we have to know that LH promotes the transformation of the degenerated follicle into the corpus luteum, or it's called the yellow body. So LH and FSH, they stimulate the growth of the cavitary follicle as well as its maturation. So this graph is very important graph. If you want to analyze this graph is showing the level of FSH and LH in mu per milliliter, whereas the second graph is showing the level of estrogen and progesterone. Pay attention. The blue one is for the estradiol and the pink one is for the progesterone. Now we have the phases, the follicular phase, the luteal phase, and here we have the menses or the menstrual cycle. If you notice here that at the beginning of the follicular phase, the level of the FSH is about 3 to 4 mu. This is the value, okay? Whereas the secreted of the level of LH is about 2 mu. Here is the level of LH. During the follicular phase, the level of LH, it fluctuates between around 2. So here we have fluctuation around 2. While the level of FSH, it decreases from 4 mu to about 2 mu. Here it decreases to about 2 mu. Around ovulation, there is an increase in both levels, LH and FSH. So we have here around ovulation a peak for both LH and FSH. While after ovulation, after the day 14 during the luteal phase, the level of LH and FSH, they decreases respectively. Okay, so here we have to know this. And let's see here, the follicular phase seems to be controlled by LH and FSH, since we have both hormones LH and FSH. The hormones LH and the FSH, they ensure the development of the follicle, stimulating the secretion of estradiol or estrogen. So day 14 of the ovarian cycle, a peak in LH and FSH will provoke the ovulation or allows the ovulation. While the luteal phase, which is controlled by the pituitary gland, we have low levels of LH and FSH in this phase. In the luteal phase, we have low levels of LH and FSH. This will result in high level of estrogen and progesterone. So we have to know that the variation in the levels of these hormones LH and FSH, gonadotropic hormones, cyclic, like the variation in the levels of the ovarian hormones estrogen and progesterone. So we have here synchronization or we have periodicity. Okay, we will know what will happen in the next lesson about the feedbacks, negative feedback or positive feedback, and so on. So here at the beginning of the follicular phase at day 0, the level of FSH is relatively high, about 4 mu. This is the value, while that of LH is relatively low, it's about 2 mu. During follicular phase between the days 0 and 9, the level of LH fluctuates around 2 mu, while between days 0 and 12, FSH decreases from 4 to reach about 2 mu. Around ovulation at day 14, the levels of LH and FSH, they increase simultaneously, and we have peaks in the level of LH and FSH, where the peak of LH reaches about 24 mu, and that of FSH, it reached about 8 mu. So during the luteal phase, after day 14, this is the luteal phase, both hormones LH and FSH level decreases. Okay, where the FSH, it reaches about 2 mu, while that of the LH, the green one, 0.1 or 0.2 at day 28. The follicular phase seems to be controlled by the hormones LH and FSH. These ensure the development of the follicle, stimulating the secretion of estrogen. So around the 14th day of the ovarian cycle, a peak in the secretion of LH and FSH allows ovulation to occur. The luteal phase, which is also controlled by the pituitary gland hormones, is characterized by low level of LH and FSH, which result in high level of estrogen and progesterone. So variations in the levels of LH and FSH cyclic, like the variation in the levels of the ovarian hormones. So we noted that we have identical synchronization or periodicity. They are periodic or they are synchronized. Moving to the second idea about the hypothalamic control of the pituitary secretions. So we have the hypothalamic pituitary control on the pituitary secretions. So let's start step by step. So first, you have to know that the experiments below were carried out to show that the secretion of the pituitary hormones is not autonomous, like the ovarian hormones secretion. Let's start with the first experiment. First experiment, or let's start with the first series, with the first experiment in the first series. We had the destruction of the hypothalamic neurons. The result is the anterior pituitary gland stops secretion of LH and FSH. What does this indicate? This indicates that these neurons, the hypothalamic neurons, they are responsible for the secretion of LH and FSH. Second, electric stimulation of these neurons. So we have secretion of LH and FSH by the pituitary gland increases. So electrical stimulation leads to the increase in LH and FSH. So this will confirm the result before, that these neurons, they are responsible for the secretion of LH and FSH. Experiment 3. We disconnected the pituitary gland from the hypothalamus. What is the result? The result is the anterior pituitary gland stops secreting LH and FSH. So what does this mean? This means that the control exerted by the hypothalamic neurons on the pituitary gland should pass through the pituitary stem, should be connected to each other. Otherwise, there is no effect. So they should be connected. Last experiment, we took a sample from the vascular network of the pituitary stem. So we have a highly active substance, GnRH, may be isolated, stimulating therefore the release of the gonadotropin hormones. So this means that the control between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, it's chemical at the level of the pituitary duct and the level of where the hypothalamic neurons release a substance into the blood. This substance is GnRH. So the GnRH stimulates the secretion of LH and the FSH by the pituitary gland. So we can conclude here that the hypothalamus controls the activity of the pituitary gland through what? Through the secretion of the GnRH. So hypothalamus, keep in mind, hypothalamus secretes GnRH, and we will have a word that we have to add it after secretion of GnRH by hypothalamic neurons, and it should be released into the blood. Let's move to the second series of experiments. In a female monkey, we carried out a selective lesion in the posterior part of the hypothalamus. So we did a lesion. So the level of LH and FSH are shown in the figure parts 1 and 2. Okay? So first, at the beginning, the level of LH was 30 microgram per liter, and the level of FSH was approximately 350 microgram per liter. Upon the lesion occurs here at this time. Okay? So after the lesion, in the posterior part of the hypothalamus, between the days 0 and days 1 of the lesion, there is a fall in the level of LH from 30 to become approximately null. Okay, while between days 0 and 2, there is a fall in the level of FSH. It decreases from 350 microgram per liter, to about 50. Decreases of about 50 microgram per liter. So the level, as time proceeds, it becomes approximately 0 for both LH and FSH. So here we can deduce that control exerted on the anterior pituitary gland by the hypothalamus is indispensable for the release of LH and FSH. While in another monkey subjected to similar lesion, we injected GnRH in a continuous or discontinuous manner. So here, the one is continuous in yellow, and the spaces here, they are discontinuous. So upon the lesion of the hypothalamus at time 0, here we have the levels of LH, and here we have the level of FSH in microgram per milliliter here. So upon the lesion of the hypothalamus at day 0, there were minimum levels of LH and FSH. The lesion in the hypothalamic control system may be corrected by the injection of GnRH. This injection of GnRH is discontinuous, meaning that it's in a pulsatile manner. Pulsatile manner meaning that in a discontinuous. So whenever we have continuous injection here at this part, continuous injections of GnRH, the levels of LH and FSH, they were low levels. Whereas discontinuous injection of GnRH, this stimulates the increase in the level. So pituitary gland secretion of LH and FSH is stimulated by the posterior part of the hypothalamus that will secrete GnRH. Here is the word that I added here. So the hypothalamus secretes the GnRH in a discontinuous, it's called pulsatile manner. P-U-L-S-A-T-L-I-E, pulsatile manner. And this explains the results here. Okay, so GnRH is the key for our solution. So GnRH is considered as a neurohormone. Why? Neurohormone first is secreted by the hypothalamic neuron, the neuron of the hypothalamus. Yet it's put into the blood, so it's a hormone, so it's a neurohormone secreted by a neuron and it's poured into the blood. And GnRH is secreted by the hypothalamus in a discontinuous manner or a pulsatile manner.
The hypothalamus and pituitary gland are at the center of endocrine functions. The hypothalamus is part of the brain, while the pituitary, also called hypophysis, is an endocrine gland. The hypothalamus links the nervous system to the endocrine system via the pituitary gland. The two structures are located at the base of the brain and are connected by a thin stalk. The hypothalamus produces several hormones, known as neurohormones, which control the secretion of other hormones by the pituitary. Pituitary hormones, in turn, control the production of yet other hormones by other endocrine glands. The pituitary has two distinct lobes. The anterior pituitary, also called adenohypophysis, communicates with the hypothalamus via a network of blood vessels known as the hypophyseal portal system. Several neurohormones produced by the hypothalamus are secreted into the portal system to reach the anterior pituitary, where they stimulate or inhibit production of pituitary hormones. Major hormones include gonadotropin-releasing hormone, GnRH, a hypothalamic hormone, stimulates the anterior pituitary to produce follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH. FSH and LH, in turn, control the activities of the gonads, the ovaries, and testes. Corticotropin-releasing hormone, CRH, promotes the secretion of adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, which in turn stimulates production of cortisol by the adrenal gland. Thyrotropion-releasing hormone, TRH, promotes the release of thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH, and prolactin. TSH, in turn, induces the thyroid gland to produce thyroid hormones. Prolactin stimulates the mammary glands to produce milk. Prolactin-inhibiting hormone, PIH, inhibits production of prolactin. Growth hormone-releasing hormone, GHRH, promotes production of growth hormone, or somatotropin, which has widespread effects on the growth of various tissues in the body. Growth hormone-inhibiting hormone, GHIH, or somatostatin, inhibits production of growth hormone. The posterior pituitary, also called neurohypophysis, communicates with the hypothalamus via a bundle of nerve fibers. These are essentially hypothalamic neurons, with cell bodies located in the hypothalamus, while their axons extend to posterior pituitary. These neurons produce hormones, transport them down the stalk, and store them at the nerve terminals within the posterior pituitary, where they await a nerve signal to trigger their release. Two hormones have been identified so far: vasopressin, also known as antidiuretic hormone, ADH, acts on the kidneys to retain water, and oxytocin, which causes the uterus to contract during childbirth and stimulates contractions of milk ducts in lactating women. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, be sure to check out our new Patreon page. Patreon is a simple way for you to contribute to our production and get great rewards in return. Join us to make videos like these happen.